This is 5 on 20 News, where the news is hot, and I'm your newscaster, Phyllis James, and this is my first Live at 5. It's Monday, June 12th, and we're coming to you live from the Creative Tucson studio in downtown Tucson. First, let's talk local headlines. Anti-Sharia marches in Phoenix and around the country were met with counted protests over the weekend, but no arrests or violence occurred. Protesters gathered to oppose what they claim is an increase in laws friendly to Muslims, which they think will slowly lead to Sharia law in the country. Sharia law is a system where states' laws are governed by the Quran and is practiced in some countries such as Iran, Sudan, and Saudi Arabia. Protesters said that they also were showing disapproval over oppression to women, honor killings, homophobic violence, female genital mutilation, and other abuses. The Arizona Anti-Sharia March was organized by ACT, who were designated an anti-Muslim hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. But the march in Paradise Valley was met with an equal-sized number of counter-protesters, many of whom shouted shame at the protesters. Witnesses say that there were about 100 people on either side. They claim that the marches are intended to intimidate Muslims in the U.S. and say that no version of Sharia law is even close to being instituted in the U.S. The rallies occurred in about 24 cities and 20 states, including Georgia and New York. Tohono O'odham police are investigating a dead body found hanging from a tree on the reservations near the village of Santa Cruz. A helicopter crew manned by the Border Patrol's Air and Marine Operations spotted the body over the weekend. Agents maintained the scene until Tohono O'odham police arrived to take charge of the investigation. No further details were provided. Arizona added a record 15,100 food service jobs during the first quarter of 2017. Despite a raise in minimum wage, some analysts believe that Prop 206, which raised the minimum wage to $10 an hour, will have a devastating effect on the food service industry, a view that turned out not to be true, at least so far. But opponents of Prop 206 say that 1 quarter is not enough to see the long-term effects of the minimum wage hike, which will rise to $12 per hour by 2020. Arizona gained a total of 56,200 jobs during the first quarter of 2017, with food service and healthcare seeing the biggest increases. The 6.8 increase in food service jobs was the largest across the nation. Lee McFetters, an economist at Arizona State, said that he expects the food service job boom to continue, mostly due to the cultural trend of more people eating out. However, he cautioned that many food service jobs would eventually be replaced by automation. Way to spoil the party, Lee. Tucson military personnel compiled a list of hassles with financial firms as part of Dodd-Frank's program to protect consumers. Over 200 complaints were filed by military personnel in Tucson, claiming mistreatment by mortgage companies, debt collectors, credit rating agencies, and other financial firms. These were among over 1,200 complaints filed across the state by military personnel and retirees since March of 2015, according to a report by the Arizona Public Interest Research Group and the Frontier Group. Some service members said that they were hounded for debts that they didn't owe. Others said that their credit ratings were lowered because lenders hadn't removed inaccurate information from their credit files. Most of these cases were closed with explanation, which means that the case was resolved and usually that the victims received financial compensation for the mistakes. The reports were filed by the Consumer Protection Bureau, which was established by the Dodd-Frank Act. Last Thursday, the House voted to roll back the powers of the Bureau because Republicans opposed the agency's creation, calling it undemocratic. However, the Senate has not yet weighed in on the matter. And now in national and international news, Puerto Rico overwhelmingly voted for U.S. statehood in a non-binding referendum on Sunday. Some groups have boycotted the vote, and the referendum had a low turnout, which some used to call into question the validity of the vote. The island last voted for statehood in 2012, but Congress never put the issue to an official vote since the referendum was non-binding. Puerto Rico is suffering from a recession caused by a flood of unsustainable debt, totaling upwards of $120 billion. If Puerto Rico defaults on its debts, then it would mark the largest municipal default in history. In comparison, the current largest bankruptcy by Detroit had debts of only $18.5 billion. The case began in court last month, where creditors claimed that they are owed the full amount, while Puerto Rico tried to get some of its debts forgiven. The Attorney General's Office of Washington, D.C. and Maryland have filed a lawsuit against President Trump over claims of conflict of interest violations. The lawsuit states that foreign payments to the president's businesses violates an anti-corruption clause to the Constitution. The emulations clause forbids the president from receiving money from foreign governments. As part of the lawsuit, the attorneys general are hoping to obtain Trump's tax returns, which he has refused to hand over because he claims he's under audit. Even though Trump claims to have separated himself from his businesses, some say that he's still too connected because his business was taken over by his sons. This would be the first suit of its kind to be brought against a government entity, according to the Washington Post. It looks like we won't get to see the Trump Goes to England episode of the presidential reality show anytime soon. President Trump delayed a visit to the UK, calling Prime Minister Theresa May to tell her that he would wait to come until the public supported his visit. He might be waiting a while because last week the UK voted to unseat members of May's party, which resulted in her government losing their majority. However, Trump made the call weeks before the vote, according to a Downing Street advisor, but the advisor says that May was surprised by Trump's message since she put out the invitation on the week he was elected. UK and US officials both deny that the trip was pushed back and say that a date for a visit hasn't been set yet. The alleged delay comes at a time of criticism within the UK over Trump's comments following last week's terrorist attack in London. Trump used the occasion to say how the attack proves that the U.S. needs to perform so-called extreme vetting. He was also criticized for starting a Twitter beef with London Mayor Sadiq Khan after Khan said that there was no need to be alarmed over the attacks. At least 11 people in the Democratic of the Congo were killed in a prison riot where 930 prisoners escaped. The attacks happened in the North Kivu province, where the governor said that 8 prison guards were among the dead. After the escape, only about 30 inmates remain in the prison, probably wishing they hadn't taken their afternoon nap. According to Reuters, this isn't the first or even the largest attack at the prison. They say that about 4,000 inmates escaped the prison in the capital of Kinshasa last month, after an attack blamed on a separatist group. The Congo is still overwhelmed with political turmoil after their president, Joseph Kabila, refused to hold elections after his 2 terms were up. According to the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, more people have fled conflict or violence in the Congo than anywhere in the world. This was 5 on 20 News with Phyllis James.